Joining me now is the CEO and MD of EMvision, Dr. Ron Weinberger. And I want to see what's been happening with the company since last we chatted. Ron, great to see you.
Lovely to see you too, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Before we got you into the studio, we did have a look at the share price, and it's headed in the right direction since we started doing these chats.
Yes.
For people who've never come across you before, explain what EMvision does.
So EMvision is developing using a novel technology called EM energy or microwave technology for the development of a brain scanner that's portable, it's safe, it's effective, and also very cost effective to diagnose stroke and to be able to tell the difference between the two types of stroke. But the real I guess the advantage of it is that we are bringing stroke diagnosis and imaging to the patient at pretty much anywhere that the patient is. So they may be in hospital, a stroke patient may have had a stroke at home, and to be able to provide clinicians, paramedics, Royal Flying Doctor Service with an opportunity to do this at point of care, and also to help people in rural areas where it's hard to actually get to
so
medicine.
When you decided that this was a potential company, what were the problems with trying to diagnose a stroke with the prevailing equipment that was around?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest issue today has really been that a standard of care really is CT and MRI. That's the way that you diagnose stroke and ultimately the standard of care. It's not portable, it's usually at the basement of a hospital. It's extremely expensive for facilities to purchase. In rural areas it's hard to get to as well. Ultrasound doesn't work for the brain. It just can't get through the skull. So we needed, and what was really a clinical unmet need, was the ability to look inside the brain in a portable way. And that's what we're developing, and that's the approach that we're taking.
Are you getting cheers from people in remote locations on the basis that at least we have a much better opportunity to see what's going inside our patient's head?
Yeah, so at the moment we haven't approached rural areas directly, but people that we've spoken to, for example, paramedics, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, have really supported us very strongly, saying that this would be a significant advantage in rural areas and for them to be able to diagnose and facilitate better clinical and therapeutic intervention.
Okay, so your clinical trial looks to have gone pretty well. Tell us about it.
Originally, what we were looking for was to be able to refine some of the mathematics that sits behind the imaging. So the way that we image is a completely new and unique way to do it. We enrolled 30 patients, and with those 30 patients we were looking to be able to see the two types of strokes. The two types of strokes are a clot or a bleed, and to be able to see if we could separate and identify them, as well as see their location. What had actually happened is that the trial had gone a lot better than we had anticipated. So in terms of diagnosing between the two types of strokes and the ability to localise the stroke in parts of the brain, we were able to get around 95% accuracy, which is excellent considering it's a brand new technology.
So therefore, because they had the conditions of a stroke, by then examining them, you see how effectively your technology could pick up A, that the guy had a stroke, and B, the cause.
Correct. And also what we're looking to, and we've had early indications about being able to observe the changes that occur in the brain over time with the different types of stroke, which is really what clinicians are looking for, to understand what they need to do therapeutically or to go down the next imaging path.
And I guess if it's easier to do, the clinicians would be able to see what's working really well and what's not having any effect at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does two things. It really improves, or allows the reducing the patient burden on CT and MRI, but it allows rapid intervention and the ability to see something that you couldn't really see, because you can put this on the head of a patient every hour or potentially continuously.
So on the subject of the Stroke Alliance, and you're waiting for this bid, if it's all successful, what does it mean for the company?
Well, I think the first thing is we have outstanding connectivity with some of the greatest experts in Australian stroke analysis and neurologists, so with Jeff Donnan and Steve Davies. But the funding would substantially support our ongoing clinical trials that we're planning for the future, for the next round. But it would really help us accelerate and drive the back of ambulance version and validate and support the outcome that would actually bring. So validating the technology as well as bringing the new product to market would be a significant advantage, and to allow us to do that faster would be extremely valuable.
So what kind of people do you need to take this to market?
So I think the most important part of it is people who've done it before, who really understand the regulatory landscape, who know how to engineer a medical device product. And the senior hires that we have brought on, some of them from Nanosonics, but who, for example, have had multiple regulatory approvals or have been really at the heart of making a medical device that can be taken to market and successfully work for clinicians and for patients.
Okay, so how would you then drive the adoption and acceptance of this new brain scanner as a new standard for caring for the brain?
So the first thing is make the best product possible. So
good start.
That's a good start. But fundamentally you need technology and product champions, and they're the clinicians, they're the paramedics, the people that actually end up using the device are the critical people to actually help us drive this forward. But then we believe that this will also attract potential partners, maybe imaging companies or others that would be able to get involved with us to drive distribution or further revenue opportunities for the company downstream.
And this is interesting that the FDA has come back to you with a pathway recommendation. So can you tell us about that? Because the FDA is a big game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we were very fortunate to go down a path where we would interact directly with the FDA as early as possible, and we followed a process that was available to us. And basically they came back with an expected response. We have a novel technology and device, but therefore we don't go through the easiest path, but what they've said, you don't go through the hardest path. And it allows us to be able to work with them to set up our clinical trials. They've already said, talk to us, let's engage more. And I think when the FDA says things like that, they already are encouraged by the way things are going. And it also allows us to apply for breakthrough status. The breakthrough status is really for medical devices that really solve an urgent need, such as stroke. And it allows us to have access, more rapid access to things like reimbursement and other opportunities.
Well, it's all sounding good for investors, but also sounding very good for patients in the future, Ron. So well done. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me, Peter.
It's Dr. Ron Weinberger, who's the CEO and MD of EMvision.